You see, I'll never forget the moment I realized I had a communication problem. I was 3 years into managing a sales team, a good team, solid performers, and I was in a strategy meeting with senior leadership presenting them our fourth quarter plan. I'd worked on this plan for 2 weeks. I knew it was solid and I started talking, gave them the background, explained the context, walked through the data, and laid out our approach. And about 4 minutes in, I looked around the table. Half the executives were checking their phones. My boss was staring out the window. The VP was doodling on her notepad, of all things. Nobody was listening. And here's what amazed me about that moment. It wasn't because my plan was bad. It was because I buried the important stuff under so much unnecessary information that they tuned me out before I ever got to it. You see, most mid-level managers have this problem. They know their stuff, they're competent, they're thorough, but when they talk, people don't listen. And it's not because people don't respect them, it's because they haven't learned how senior leaders actually communicate. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why nobody listens when you talk, and more importantly, the simple shift that fixes it immediately. Here's what I noticed over 20 plus years of managing and coaching managers. Most people communicate like they're building a legal case. They think they're lawyers. They start with the background. They give you all the context. They explain how they analyze the situation. They walk you through their thinking process. And then, finally, after all that, they tell you what they actually think you should do. Sounds pretty logical, right? Give people the full picture so they can understand your reasoning. But here's the problem. Senior leaders don't have time for the full picture. They're in back-to-back meetings all day. They've got 17 fires burning at once. They're making 50 decisions before lunch, and their brain is already 3 conversations ahead of whatever they're sitting through right now. So when you start with the background and context, their brain does something automatic. It says, I don't know where this is going yet, so I'm going to wait to engage until I figure out if this is even something that matters to me. And while they're waiting to figure it out, if it matters, they're not listening. They're thinking about the last meeting. They're worried about the next crisis. They're checking email in their head. They're mentally somewhere else entirely. You see, you lose people in the first 30 seconds. Not because you're boring, not because they don't care about you, but because you didn't give them a reason to care yet. And by the time you finally get to your actual point, they've already tuned you out. So here's the shift that changes everything. Stop building a case. Start with your conclusion first. I know that feels backwards. Your brain wants to explain your reasoning first, your thinking first, so they understand. You want people to understand how you got there. You want to show them you did your homework. But that's not how senior leaders communicate. And it's definitely not how they want you to communicate with them. Senior leaders lead with the answer. Then, and only then, do they give you the supporting details if you need them. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. The old way, with building a case, you'd say, so we've been tracking customer satisfaction scores over the past quarter, and we've noticed a concerning decline, specifically in our enterprise segment. We dug into the data and with support team and found that the response times have increased by about 40% since we restructured the support organization last quarter. We analyzed the escalation patterns, and it looks like the issue is that our Tier 1 team doesn't have the technical depth to handle the more complex questions that these enterprise customers are asking. So they've escalated everything up to Tier 2. What we're thinking is we should probably consider adding some more senior people to the front line to reduce those escalations. Pretty confusing? Where the new way would be leading with the conclusion, we would say, we need to add 2 senior support engineers to our Tier 1 team, and here's why. Customer satisfaction in enterprise dropped 15% this quarter because response times increased by 40%. The root cause is Tier 1 doesn't have technical depth to resolve the complex issues without escalating it. Adding 2 senior engineers solves this and should recover that 15% within 60 days. Do you see the difference? The first version makes people work to figure out what you want. The second version tells them immediately what you need, then gives them just enough evidence to make the decision. Same information, completely different impact. Now you might be thinking, Rod, won't that come across as too aggressive? Too presumptuous? Like I'm telling them what to do? No, and here's why. When you lead with your conclusion, you actually do 3 things that make people want to listen to you. First, you demonstrate confidence. You're not hedging. You're not testing the waters to see if they agree with you. You've thought it through and you have a clear point of view. That's what leaders do. They take a position. Second, you respect their time. You're essentially saying, I know you're busy. Here's what matters. Here's what I recommend. If you want the details, I've got them ready. If you disagree, we can talk about it right now. And third, you make it easy for them to engage with you. They immediately know what you're talking about and whether they agree or disagree. Now you can have a real conversation instead of them sitting there waiting for you to get to the point. You see, when you lead with background and context, you're making them work to understand you. When you lead with your conclusion, you're doing the work for them. You're making their job easier. And here's what I've learned over the years. The people who get promoted aren't always the smartest people in the room. They're not always the hardest workers. They're the people who make it easiest for leadership to understand their value and make decisions based on what they're saying. So how do I actually practice this? How do you rewire your brain to communicate this way? Let me give you a simple framework. I call it bottom line up front. Some people call it BLUF. Every time you're about to communicate something important, whether it's in a meeting or in an email, in a presentation, ask yourself one question. What's my bottom line? Not what's my background, not what's my context, not what's my supporting data. What's the one thing I need them to know or do? Then say that first. In one sentence if you can, then and only then give them the supporting information they need to act on it. Here's how this works in different situations you face in everyday life. In a meeting, instead of, let me give you some background on this project and walk you through where we are, say, we're 3 weeks behind schedule on the website design. Here's why that happened, and here's exactly how we get back on track. In an email, instead of starting with 3 paragraphs of context, start with decision needed by Friday. Should we extend the vendor contract or go out for new bids? My recommendation, extend for 1 year. Here's why. In a presentation, instead of good morning everyone, today I'm going to walk you through our 3rd quarter performance and show you some trends we've been seeing. Say the 3rd quarter exceeded plan by 12%. Here are the 3 specific things that drove that performance and what we're doing to sustain it in the 4th quarter. You see the pattern? Conclusion first, evidence second. It feels uncomfortable at first because you're used to building your case. You're used to explaining yourself. But I promise you, once you start doing this, you'll notice something happen immediately. People lean in. They engage faster. They ask better questions. They make decisions more quickly. Why? Because you gave them something concrete to react to instead of making them wait to figure out what you're talking about. Now, here's the bigger principle behind all of this, and this is important. Communication isn't about showing people how smart you are. It's not about proving you did your homework. It's not about covering yourself in case someone asks you a question that you can't answer. Communication is about serving the other person. When you lead with your conclusion, you're serving them. You're making their job easier, and you're respecting their time and their attention. You're helping them by being more effective, and you see that's what great leaders do. They make other people's lives easier, not harder. They help people win, not just themselves. I've watched this play out hundreds of times. I've seen talented managers get stuck for years because they couldn't communicate their value clearly to people who mattered. And I've seen average performers get promoted ahead of them because they made it easy for the leadership to see what they brought to the table. The difference wasn't talent. It wasn't work ethic. It wasn't even results. The difference was clarity. You see, if you can't communicate your value clearly, you don't have value. At least not in the eyes of the people making promotion decisions. They can't promote what they can't see or explain to their boss. But when you can communicate clearly, concisely, and confidently, opportunities start coming to you. People start seeking your input. Your name comes up in conversations you're not even in. And that's the visibility gravity effect we've been talking about in this series. So let me recap what we've covered today. 1, most people communicate by building a case. Background first, conclusion last. That's why nobody listens. Number 2, senior leaders do the opposite. They lead with their conclusion first, then give supporting details only if needed. Number 3, when you lead with your conclusion, you demonstrate confidence, you respect people's time, and you make it easy for them to engage with you. Number 4 is we practice bottom line up front, BLUF. Before every important conversation, ask yourself, what's my bottom line? And say that first. Number 5 is communication isn't about proving yourself. It's about serving others by making their job easier. This one shift, leading with your conclusion, will change how people hear you, starting today. Now, if you're thinking, okay, Rod, I get it, but I need help actually practicing this in real situations, I've got something for you. It's called the Visibility Starter Pack, and it's completely free. Inside, you'll find the 20-second leadership message builder, a simple tool that helps you clarify your bottom line before you walk into any meeting or send any important email. You'll also get the 3-second meeting entry technique that shows you exactly how to contribute confidently in the first 3 minutes of any meeting using this bottom line first approach we just talked about. It's designed specifically for mid-level professionals who are ready to communicate like leaders, not like an individual contributor who are still stuck in the explanation mode. The link is in the description below and pinned in the comments. And if this video helped you, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I put out 2 new videos every week on leadership communication, visibility, and career advancement for mid-level professionals who are serious about moving up. In the next video, we're going to talk about the biggest mistake managers make in one-on-ones with their boss, and it's costing you promotions you didn't even know you were losing. Thanks for watching, and let's get you heard.